Ave Imperator, brothers and sisters. Today, our subject will be the Valhallan Ice Warriors, some of the Imperium's staunchest defenders, excelling in particular at cold weather and anti-orc warfare. This video comes at the express request of veteran brother Greybeard. If you too would like to make a video request, then I suggest you have a look at the Patreon linked in the description below. In this video, we will discuss in detail the social and environmental factors that turn a citizen of Valhalla into an ideal Imperial Guard recruit. Then we're going to look at their organizational ideals as well as their war gear. To top it off, we're going to look at 3 case studies, including, again, of course, Imperial Commissar Caiaphas Cain and the 597th, as well as 2 other very famous Valhallan Ice Warrior generals. If that sounds good to you, then by the Emperor, let's get going. Who are the Valhallan Ice Warriors? Simply, they are a crucial element of the Astra Militarum strength, whose blood has been spilled over countless battlefields. Hailing from the ice world of Valhalla in Segmentum Ultima, these regiments are universally recognized for their stoic nature, their tenacity under extreme circumstances, and their unwillingness to retreat before the enemy has paid a harsh toll. The reputation of the Valhallan Ice Warriors' typical recruit is characterized by stern resolve, coupled with an almost casual disregard for human life. This last has led some to say that ice runs in their veins. All in all, these characteristics make the Valhallan Ice Warriors a highly effective, high attrition focused, let's be honest, very highly attrition focused military force utilized with great success by the Imperium. The Crucible of Valhalla. Sociological and environmental foundations. Valhalla was not always a frigid ball of ice. Shockingly, the planet was actually once classified as a verdant paradise world. Hard to believe. It had temperate forests and rich, fertile soil. This idyllic setting was brought to a catastrophic end when a rogue iron meteorite entered a collision course with the planet. Although planetary defense lasers succeeded in breaking up the comet, a colossal fragment, estimated as a couple of kilometers wide, impacted Valhalla's northern continent. The resulting explosion and subsequent dust storms and volcanic ejections would have been bad enough. But the impact was so substantial that the planet was knocked out of its orbit in the Goldilocks zone. The current state of Valhalla is an inhospitable, perpetually frozen wasteland. The entire population is forced to subsist within massive, overcrowded caverns, which have been converted into underground hives and are warmed only by the geothermal energy radiating from the planetary core. Now, this meteor strike would have been devastating enough on its own, but fate had more suffering in store for the Valhallans. Orcs. During a period called the War of Survival, the green-skinned menace arrived on Valhalla. The orcs were after forced labor, food, both human and fungus-based, as well as all the other things that any healthy war needs. The war might well have been lost were it not for Valhallan engineers who demonstrated a unique tactical competence. They were quick to utilize an asset of their miserable subterranean life, which could be turned to war: their civilian ice-boring machines. These machines and their crew were given a dangerous but vital duty to tunnel beneath the invading orc forces. The subsequent use of fiery ice-melting machines turned the tide, terrifying and burning the orcs, allowing the Valhallans to take the offensive and cut down the remaining invaders. The experience accrued during this vicious engagement ensured the Valhallans possessed a great and deep knowledge of orc tactics, for lack of a better word, and it makes them a particularly adept and fearsome fighting force against the green-skinned menace to this day. To sum up, friends, the Valhallans are not your typical massed infantry force. They are smart, adaptable, and determined. This is everything the Imperium needs in its guard recruits when they are facing the most unimaginable and unrelenting foes like the Necrons or the Orcs. The social economy of Valhalla. Survival and sacrifice. The extreme environmental transformation of the meteorite strike directly dictated Valhallan sociology and ultimately its martial culture. The Valhallans survive only through unending sacrifice and hard work. Even their food must be derived from the subsurface biome in the form of a nutrient slime cultivated from the cavern walls. The massive overcrowding within the subterranean structures means that individual human life quickly becomes cheap, even when the population stabilized. This valuation is enforced by the brutal legal system of Valhalla, where even the most minor offenses often carry the ultimate penalty: execution. The harsh reality of life on Valhalla predisposes the population there to a grim acceptance of their lot, coupled with an unrelenting will to thrive at any cost. The population is preconditioned to accept a high attrition rate, not out of naive imperial loyalty, but because existence at home is so arduous and precarious. For a Valhallan, death on the battlefield at least means that they will be comparatively better fed and have a chance at an honorable death rather than a summary execution for some minor infraction. And this cultural acceptance of death provides the Astra Militarum with an asset whose profound lack of self-preservation instinct, demonstrated by the willingness to face lethal dangers without complaint, is perhaps its most potent tactical characteristic. To be frank, friends, the reason why the Departamento Munitorum chooses to found so many new regiments from Valhalla is because they consistently provide such high quality and yet totally expendable recruits. Simply put, life is cheap on Valhalla. Organizational structure, logistical profile, and wargear. Valhalla supplies the Imperium with a diverse range of extremely useful and ruggedly dependable military assets, maintaining specialized infantry regiments, armored regiments, and artillery regiments. The Ice Warriors' reputation for relying on devastating barrages prior to their massed infantry assaults confirms the critical importance of their artillery regiments, such as the Valhallan 12th Field Infantry. The Valhallans' doctrine is founded entirely on the smooth operation of their troops to be able to operate under close and, to be perfectly frank, sometimes much too close artillery support. The Valhallan operational doctrine necessitates a high degree of logistical self-sufficiency. Guardsmen are explicitly expected to carry all items required for their survival. This requirement enables their use in deep deployment scenarios and campaigns on worlds with hostile logistics, such as their noted service in the Spinward Front. Where other regiments might suffer from a disrupted supply chain, the Valhallans thrive. Their standard issue wargear is uniquely adapted to Arctic conditions. The Valhallan Ice Warriors' Astra Militarum uniform includes a thermally insulated greatcoat and helmet, and this specialized gear is absolutely necessary for survival outside the subterranean caverns of Valhalla, as a guardsman's blood would freeze within seconds on the planet's surface. The M36 lasgun, the regiment's standard weapon, is a ubiquitous variant which has been specifically adapted for reliable function under extreme cold weather conditions. The typical loadout for an Ice Warrior includes standard Imperial equipment, such as flak armor, a combat knife, 4 charge packs for their laser weapons, 2 frag grenades, and 2 crack grenades. Armored vehicles are distinguished by camouflages suitable for frozen tundra, and display the name of their homeworld prominently on the hull. Valhallan armored regiments, such as the 28th Armored Regiment, are prime exemplars of the Astra Militarum's might, utilizing basilisks and manticore platforms, and sometimes integrating support from super heavy units like Mars pattern shadow swords. A particularly famous example of the Valhallans' use of combined infantry and mechanized units will be instantly recognizable to fans of the inimitable Caiaphas Cain and the Gravelax campaign. In the Gravelax campaign, Commissar Cain was attached to the Valhallan 597th Ice Warriors Regiment. The 597th was founded in 931 M41 with over 8,000 troopers, capable of reaching approximately 2,000 men at full strength. It was organized into 5 companies, with a majority comprising 4 or 5 platoons, each then composed of 5 10-man squads. This regiment was equipped for light mechanized movement, possessing sufficient chimeras to transport the entire regiment, 9 Sentinel Walkers and Salamanders, both the Scout and the Command variants. Crucially, the 597th's organization profile noted the absence of heavy armored assets like Lehman Russ battle tanks. Despite the difficult operations involving conflict against both the Tau and the Gene Stealers, the firm discipline of the Valhallans coupled to the tactical acumen of the 597th secured the day for them, and stymied the Tau advance in the system. Caiaphas Cain, his stalwart dog's body Jurgen, and the 597th are some of the most famous examples of the Valhallan Ice Warrior doctrine, so let's use them as our first case study. The Valhallan 597th. Command Synthesis in action. The operational history of the Valhallan 597th Ice Warriors Regiment provides a critical counterpoint to the extreme attrition paradigm practiced by many other Valhallan regiments, who we shall discuss a bit later. The operational history of the 597th Ice Warriors Regiment provides a critical counterpoint to the extreme attrition paradigm practiced by many other Valhallan regiments, who we shall discuss in another case study a little bit later. The operating methodology of the 597th demonstrated how Valhallan discipline can be successfully channeled into complex, strategic, and low casualty operations under the correct, nuanced leadership. The 597th was formed in 931 M41 via a forced amalgamation of two shattered units that had suffered over 50% casualties fighting Tyranids on Corania. The remnant regiments included the all-female Valhallan 296th, who were mostly focused on rear echelon and HQ security, and the all-male 301st, who were planetary assault shock troops. Command was granted to Colonel Regina Kasteen, the senior surviving officer of the 296th, who held only 3 days seniority over Major Rupert Brocklaw, the more combat-experienced officer from the 301st. The ensuing internal tension between the two halves of the new regiment was crippling, leading to hostility and finally a mess room brawl that resulted in several casualties, including a security officer from the transport ship they were on. Morale hung by a thread and was only restored through the efforts of the then newly assigned commissar Caiaphas Cain. Other commissars would have shot first and issued demands later. Not Cain, however. I feel, and I think most people will agree with me when I say, that if anyone must accept credit for how the 597th later turned out, it is surely Caiaphas Cain, who, via deft political manipulation, and also, it has to be said, subtle threats, renamed his divided regiment, the 597th, and then focused on integrating the male and female troopers equally at the squad level, literally breaking the entire regiment down and reforming them and forcing them to work together. This forced cooperation led to a slowly building mutual respect between, first and foremost, the officer corps represented by Kasteen and Brocklaw, and later on, the regiment as a whole. This entirely healed the split between the two groups, which was very lucky because they were about to find themselves in hot water. Let's talk about Kasteen a little bit. Colonel Kasteen. Though young and initially self-conscious about her relative inexperience, Colonel Kasteen quickly matured into a fine and talented leader. Her command style was characterized by a soldier's blunt efficiency and a low tolerance for bureaucratic obstruction. For instance, when facing an orc invasion on Simia or Recalque, she bypassed the unprepared administratum deputies, who were dithering and arguing about who should have overall operational command. She bypassed them by declaring martial law to secure the vital Promethean refinery. Her deft combination of velvet glove and iron fist immediately secured the respect of the administratum and adeptus mechanicus worthies. Kasteen's value extended beyond blunt executive action to include critical strategic foresight. During the deployment to Adumbria, for example, against the Chaos Warband known as the Ravagers, Kasteen identified a combat pattern that had eluded other command staff. She correctly theorized that the Ravagers were actually not merely invaders, but they were actively attempting to prevent a rival Slaneshi cult from summoning a demon. This interference between two separate divisions of chaos, worshipping opposite gods, for example, opposed gods Slanesh and Khorne, this is very common amongst chaos, but only an adept leader capable of understanding the forces at play, both on a micro level and a macro level, would have been able to assemble all these facts and then come up with a plan to treat them accordingly. Acting on Kasteen's theory, the 597th intervened, successfully interrupting a Slaneshi ritual intended to put Adumbria half in and half out of the warp, thereby saving countless lives. This history from the 597th demonstrates very aptly that Valhallan commanders do not need to pursue entirely a high attrition style of warfare. They are fully capable of persecuting successful campaigns based on the use of key strategic intelligence coupled with analytical skill and the native discipline of the Valhallan troops, rather than just relying on overwhelming force. So we've talked about the 597th and the use of both strategic insight coupled with tactical acumen to do great things with the disciplined Valhallan Ice Warrior soldier. This is countered by the other style, because the Valhallans are also the masters of brutal, attrition-based warfare, the attrition ideal. Commander Chenkov is the most famous example of the Valhallan commander who embodies the attrition school. His approach is defined by ruthlessness and a willingness to expend troops as tactical resources, provided victory is secured. In one particularly notorious action, Chenkov ordered his infantry platoons to clear enemy minefields. How? By forcing them to march across the explosives. It was effective, but at a cost that other Militarum commanders would have struggled to swallow. In another instance, he ordered platoons to draw enemy fire to ensure the more valuable demolition crews could breach an enemy battle fortress undetected. Shocking, horrific, but effective. The most potent example of his philosophy occurred during the year-long siege of Kotrax. Upon assuming command of the Imperial battle group, Chenkov ordered Imperial Guard regiments to storm a heavily defended citadel without dedicated siege weapons or armored support. This action resulted in a catastrophic loss of life, costing 10 million Imperial Guardsmen their lives. This is unthinkable to everyone except the disciplined Valhallan mind. His callous decision, made where other commanders would have dithered or tried to find less costly methods, brought the conflict to a swift end. Chenkov himself was subsequently awarded the High Merit of the High Lords for his achievements. Chenkov's validation by the High Lords is crucial. It confirms that the Imperium formally sanctions and actually actively rewards the successful application of extreme human sacrifice, provided, of course, that it generates favorable results for the greater whole of the Imperium. Thus, we find that the cultural fatalism of the Valhallans is actually viewed as a legitimate and effective tactical resource. There's one more case study I'd like to talk about, and it's Colonel Scheja and his use of tactics. Much like Colonel Kasteen, and certainly in contrast to Chenkov's blunt application of force, officers like Colonel Scheja demonstrate Valhallan competence in complex, politically charged operations. Colonel Scheja, commander of the 28th Valhallan Regiment, built his reputation during the Judgment of Hellenes, where his unit was officially seconded to Inquisitor Hector Rex. The Judgment of Hellenes was a difficult operation against a hive population that had turned mutant. During the course of this operation, forces of the Iron Lords Adeptus Astartes chapter became gene-tainted and had to be put down by their brothers in arms. In such a difficult and demanding theater of war, most baseline human commands would have broken down from sheer stress. Colonel Scheja brilliantly used the Valhallans not as a hammer, but as a spear tip. He used them as figureheads to inspire and rally the flagging morale of the rest of the Imperium command in the theater. His careful use then of his further resources, including his infantry, to ensure they were never pushed to the breaking point, was palpably vital to the overall success of the conflict. This operational success catapulted him into the upper ranks of the Astra Militarum's overall command structure, beginning with a secondment to the Army HQ. His career trajectory illustrates that Valhalla produces officers capable of high-level military integration and political maneuvering to achieve impressive ends. Simply put, the Valhallans are not a hammer. They are an incredibly diverse toolkit, from the very lowest levels of the infantry all the way up to the top echelons of the Imperium's command structure. The Valhallans are wonderfully useful, talented, disciplined, staunch soldiers. I admire them deeply. To sum up, friends, the Valhallan Ice Warriors are defined by a profound paradox. Their greatest military strength, unflagging discipline, staunch stoicism, and dogged tenacity is a direct reflection of the grim hardship and cheap valuation of life on their homeworld. This unique cultural conditioning makes them ideally suited to high attrition warfare. It allows them to selflessly and perfectly execute the strategic doctrine of combined massed artillery and relentless human wave assaults. The command philosophy governing these regiments ranges from the absolute ruthless efficiency exemplified by Commander Chenkov, who confirmed that extreme sacrifice yields sanctioned victory, to the strategic competence demonstrated by Colonel Regina Kasteen and Colonel Scheja, who both harnessed that Valhallan discipline, again, that comes from that cheap and grim life on their homeworld, to yield victory in highly skilled operations. Ultimately, the Valhallans are indispensable to the Astra Militarum. Their unique adaptations for cold weather combat, their deep institutional expertise in fighting orcs, and culturally mandated discipline allow them to be deployed reliably into the galaxy's most dangerous and logistically difficult war zones. They're serving as the stoic bulwark of the Imperium until final victory is achieved, regardless of the cost. My friends, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was of use to you in your understanding of both the Valhallan Ice Warriors Regiment, but also of the Imperial Guard as a greater whole. Don't forget, friends, please also the like, the share, the subscribe, and the hype all help other seekers after knowledge find my message in the warp. Also, too, if you are interested in supporting the channel and in helping to select the direction of future lore videos, do consider having a look at the Patreon linked in the description below. I'd be very proud to have you on as my supporters. And that's it for today. Please also tune in to my live streams to check out other things like 40k tabletop, Warhammer focused gaming, and even other turn-based tactics games like one of my real passions, Final Fantasy Tactics. There's also going to be a lot of discussion of novels, lore, and also model painting, which I'm just getting into now. Please too, don't forget to join our Discord and engage with the lively community that we have there of other Warhammer enjoyers. As always, Ave Imperator, you honor me. Thank you.